Now, what kind of laws could go away? What kind of regulations could go away?
Well, for instance, this low carbon fuel standard might go away, and the cap and trade program might go away, and some of the other regulations that CARB is enforcing, they're enforcing on all different kinds of things, on warehouses, on vehicles, on trucking, on you have all these different local air districts, and you have the California Air Resources Board, and they have different jurisdictions, but it all ties together, and it's all aimed, all these policies are aimed even at places like the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. They're trying to go to 100% so-called clean energy, which is very expensive. And why are they doing it? To reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this whole idea of trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions no matter what it costs is crazy in California. And it's hitting critical mass right now. I think people can't pay their electric bills all over the state. It's very, very tough the way they're raising those rates. And why are they raising the rates? To meet these standards. And what do these standards accomplish? All of California is 1% of greenhouse gas emissions globally. The whole state, 1% globally, maybe not even that much. If you shut down the state, if you clipped it off from North America and let it sink into the ocean, it would not affect the global climate. It's 1%. So these little marginal changes that we're making, where we won't build housing because the distances are too far to work, and that'll be bad for the climate. And we have to have bike lanes because cars are bad for the climate, so you have to pay to build bike lanes. And you have to have higher prices for gasoline and higher prices for electricity and pressure everybody not to use power. What is that accomplishing? Except burdening the people of the state of California, lowering the standard of living in this state, increasing the poverty rate, bothering everybody all the time. What is it accomplishing?
From what I saw, CARB had actually the pollution on the cars by 99% from the emissions in the last few decades. But now, from what you're saying, if we continue at that path, the cost is going to be so much that might impact us in a different way. We might have reached a point where it might not be worth it. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that they've gotten off the subject of air pollution and they've gotten onto the subject of global warming. And that is a very different thing. Air pollution and air quality needed to be cleaned up, was cleaned up. Instead of saying congratulations, what they did is they said, well, how are we going to keep our jobs now? Having fixed this, what are we going to do next? And now we have this enormous bureaucracy that is concerned about reducing global warming.
But that drive comes from Californians, right? And the legislature and the government, right? It comes from
laws that the legislature passed on multiple occasions, yes. First one was 2006, the Global Warming Solutions Act, which said, now I'm not going to remember the exact percentage, but we had to go something like 40% below 1990 levels of greenhouse gases, something like that. And then later it was, they tightened it, they made it, we have to get there sooner and we have to get there further, and they just kept tightening it. And now we're on track, according to our laws. I think it was SB 100 a few years back from Kevin DeLeon. I might be wrong, but I think that's what it was. We have to get to 100% clean energy, meaning solar and wind and these other novelty things that are not the big producers of energy. And if you go to CAISO.com, CAISO.com, which is the California Independent System Operator, you can see 5-minute updates day and night of the energy supply in California.
Where it comes from, right?
Where it comes from. And does it come from solar and wind? Not really. You'll find people saying, oh, we had 75 days in a row where during some point in the day we were 100% renewable. It doesn't matter, because at some point during the day isn't enough. When the sun goes down, we're using natural gas, large hydroelectric facilities, nuclear power, and imported electricity. It's a game that they're playing. A lot of people are making money on these other types of energy and on the credit trading schemes and on all of this. Research and development for the newest technology. CARB wants to implement always the newest technology. We have these different programs for building standards and appliance standards, and these are all billed to the ratepayers. This was in a report from the California Energy Commission, and there was also a report from the California Public Utilities Commission about why electricity rates are so high. One of the reasons was California has this building standards program, building and appliance standards, and they do all this research and development, and who's paying for this? The ratepayers. It's all billed to the ratepayers. of the utilities. And
so it's coming into the cost of living, but it
Exactly.
comes from a different way. It comes from the producer of the utility or
Right.
provider of the gasoline or whoever. It comes from another layer.
Right.
So the consumers don't really see that.
They don't see why their rates are going up, but the rates are going up.
You mentioned that CARB has been mandated by the legislature, so they're really following what they're told, right, to come up with these standards.
The legislature said you must hit these targets, and CARB came up with the programs on how to hit the targets. So there's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, I suppose the regulators could have said, this is going to be too expensive, and this is going to drive the cost of living, and you should think about this, but they didn't. They said, well, okay, yes, sir, we'll do it. And they came up with these programs, which are very expensive. But as you said, they're indirect. So people don't realize why their costs are so high. They don't realize that the problems they're having are caused by the people they're electing and the policies they're pursuing.
Well, there's another side to this because we have been interviewing a lot of the members of Senate and Assembly in California, and they're really concerned about cost of living, cost of utilities, and they're questioning how we can fix that. But they might not know that this is coming from this regulation.
I think they are all on board with the climate change agenda of California leading the world on this policy, and they are not recognizing the connection between the policy and the costs. They're concerned about the cost of living, but they're not honestly looking to see what's causing the cost of living. Obviously, there's an inflation problem in the whole country from the last few years, but California's cost of living is a little worse. It's a little higher. And why is that? Is it because grocery stores are gouging Californians and not people in other states? No. It's because food comes to the grocery store on a truck. And the trucking industry has been hit by a lot of regulations and requirements in California that make transportation more expensive. And the same with farming. And the cost of water is burdened by these various policies and regulations. All of these things are in the cost of living, and all of these things are man-made decisions from our government.
Now, do you think it must be very hard to understand what's the cost of each policy?
Well, the cap and trade program, they have some numbers on that. I don't have them at the top of my head, but they are always looking to see how much money the bullet train is going to get. And so they're looking to see what the estimates are for what the cap and trade program will produce. It varies because it's this artificial market that they created where people are bidding on the permits, and then different things make the permits more or less expensive. But really, it's a fake market. There wouldn't be a market for this at all if you didn't have the requirement that people must buy permits to operate. You wouldn't have a market. They call it a market-based solution, but it's just government force.
Now, you mentioned with Trump administration, all of this could change. How much can it change?
Well, we'll all find out together because they're going to go to court over it. If President Trump pulls California's waiver, California will go to court. There'll probably be...
Does it have to be through Congress, or it can be just an executive order?
That's a good question. I think he could probably try it as an executive order because it's regulatory, so it might be from the executive branch, but they're going to go to court and they're going to argue about all these things, and we'll see where it comes out. One of the things that's been interesting about the Trump administration so far is that President Trump has used a very targeted approach to go after particular legal precedents that have empowered the bureaucracy. And he's going after them. He has intentionally, I think, tried to get himself sued over various things to go after specific decisions that the courts have made that have empowered the bureaucracy.